Welcome back. So you've met your brand of joy and you're seeing how it relates to the role that you're wanting to step into, your starring role. So maybe you are the entrepreneur leader who has enjoyed a certain level of success and now you're looking to start something brand new that complements the work that you've been doing. So perhaps you decided you want to start a podcast and you've checked in with your brand of joy. And in this case, perhaps your brand of joy is something like elevated. So making this up, by the way. So for you, elevated is underpinned by innovation and connection and play. So you're really seeing how this role of masterful podcaster is in sync, is in step with your brand of joy. Fabulous! So you're cracking and you're ready to go. Just one problem. When you're about to take action, of course, the critics start to show up. And we may be dealing with realistic objections, or we may be dealing with the inner critic. And sometimes they sound the same. And if we don't know if we're dealing with an inner critic or a realistic objection, then we don't apply the right tools and we can't move forward. And this is all about moving forward, stepping into our starring role. So although I have tons and tons and tons of tools that'll help you manage the inner critic and realistic objections that I share in the Step Into a Starring Role program, for the purpose of today's video, I really just wanted to offer you a bit of clarity to help you figure out which is which. So let's start with a realistic objection. Okay, so you want to start a podcast, but you don't know the first thing about podcasting. Great, that actually may be true. So this is a realistic objection. It shows up in an absolute statement. And there's room for what's possible, okay? So it names a limitation that points to an action or a solution, whether or not that action or solution is actually reasonable, but planning for a workaround resolves the objection. And I also want you to notice that there's a kind of an expanded energy. What if? What's possible? Let's get curious. Let's figure this out, okay? Now, an inner critic objection might be something like, no one's going to tune in. Once again, it's an absolute statement, but notice there's very little room for nuance. It is not interested in problem solving. It is not interested in action. It's chronic and it's repetitive. Its intention is to shut you down, sabotage any forward motion, which is why it's also known as a saboteur. It may also take on the tone of somebody in your life who is an actual critic of your actions. Super smart inner critics we have because they really know how to what you're going to react to most of all. And I also want you to be able to sense the defeated, contracted energy that the inner critic brings with it. That sort of, why bother? What's the point? Shut her down kind of energy. So, once again, we have lots of ways of dealing with the inner critics, plenty of very sophisticated ways because our inner critics are actually pretty sophisticated. And then, of course, in how we're going to deal with the realistic objections. Tomorrow, in tomorrow's video, we're going to be talking about assembling your cast. And assembling your cast is going to look like filling some of those gaps. So, for instance, in the realistic objection about not knowing anything about starting a podcast, the sort of implicit solution is learn, find a teacher. Jessica Kupferman comes to mind. She's got a fantastic resource that helps you to learn how to create podcasts. There's plenty of people around you. So tomorrow we're going to be looking at assembling the cast, but I really just wanted to give you something that today you can apply. You can listen for those critics and you can start to parse between the realistic objections and the inner critics. Thank you so much for being here. See you tomorrow.